Earlier today, I had a chance to get a look at the new companion book for Steven Universe titled Guide to the Crystal Gems. It was an interesting read, and I thought it might be worth it to do a review here on my channel. There will be spoilers for the book in this review, and some of those are potential spoilers for the series, so continue at your own risk. I'll be keeping this review as brief as possible to avoid including any more spoilers that are absolutely necessary to review it, and any new information presented in the book that I feel is noteworthy will be covered in later videos. So if you're worried about having all of that spoiled, you probably don't have much to worry about here. The book is told from the point of view of Steven, telling the audience about the crystal gems directly, with the crystal gems lending him their voices from time to time. Everything in this book is technically fourth wall breaking dialogue. There isn't a narrative. The book is simply what it claims to be, a guide to better help fans of the show understand the nature of the characters. However, as it is geared towards readers ages 8 to 12, it is relatively simplistic and mostly reiterates things that we have already been told in the show itself, just in a bit more specific detail. It includes things such as a section explaining fusion and bios on the crystal gems and the known crystal gem fusions, with the notable exception of rainbow quartz. It goes into a decent bit of detail describing them and their personalities. However, there really isn't much new here, and most of the info is taken straight from the show itself. We get the same for the homeworld gems that we've met so far, but they're almost even more sparse, going so far as to list Peridot's weapon as simply gem technology rather than an actual object that she can form from her gem. Unless Peridot simply doesn't have the ability to summon a weapon, which I find highly unlikely, this is false information, likely because Steven is what is called an unreliable narrator. He doesn't know everything, and because his voice is the voice of the book, the information in the book is potentially inaccurate and incomplete, limited by what he does know. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Either way, this is a great way to keep from spoiling us too much. More interesting than anything I've talked about so far is a section devoted to Rose. We get her bio as well, plus extensive information regarding her motivations and the manifesto that she established to guide the crystal gems and define their moral code. It is heavily implied that this information comes from the stories that Pearl tells to Steven about the war in Rose's Scabbard, stories that we didn't get to hear. If this is true, then this book contains the very first hints as to what those stories were about. However, as I mentioned, some of the information in this book does seem inaccurate. One of the new pieces of information that we are given is a pretty definitive time frame for the beginning of the war, that being 5,500 years ago, and it is stated by Pearl, not by Steven. This seems fine until you remember that the war began with Rose shutting down the Earth Kindergarten or kindergartens, depending on whether or not there is more than one site. This was said to have happened 6,000 years ago by Pearl in Marble Madness. That's a margin of error of 500 years. Whether this is a factual error or a retcon, meaning to make the timeline of the series more concise, it is a discrepancy, one which can't be explained by Steven's status as an unreliable narrator, and is enough to make me think twice about considering the information in this book as a primary resource in terms of my videos. I intend to wait for some or all of this information to be substantiated by the series itself, all except for one detail about fusions that I will talk about later, but only because members of the Steven Universe staff have mentioned this elsewhere as well. All in all, I had fun with this book, but it isn't some sort of end-all be-all trove of trivia about the show. If you have watched the show, you know this stuff for the most part, but the information is easily digestible and helps explain the aspects of the show that might be difficult for younger viewers to understand. It's colorful and entertaining and captures the voices of the main characters very well. So is it worth it for you to pick up a copy of this book? I'll let you decide based on whether it sounds like this is something that you would enjoy. All I can say is that I enjoyed it, but that might just be me. This has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.